Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I am Steve Gibson.
I'm Ben Matlock.
And we're back. We're here.
And welcome to the number one show for fish and boat reviews.
Yeah. Today we got the Kingsman Select XL 4700.
Now, last week we reviewed the Bass Blaster 3000, and I fucking loved that boat. And let me tell you, being out on the water with this thing this week, what a piece of shit. It doesn't have a cup holder. Doesn't have a cup holder in the other arm. There's no cup holders.
Well, that's if you can't drink your beer while you're fishing, why are you even fishing?
Yeah, if I have to bring my beer dispensing helmet, then I'll just go I'll sit on the dock with it.
Yeah, what am I supposed to wear? A black tie, too? I'm wearing my fancy helmet.
Yeah, and
that's for special occasions.
So come back next week. We'll have a new fishing boat that's not a piece of shit. Hopefully the Bass Blaster again, because I love that boat. Remember, a goddamn beaut.
Be very careful when you Google Bass Blaster. One typo will go horribly wrong.
Well, let me tell you about the Ass Blaster now. That thing is also a high-quality machine.
It at least has cup holders, right?
It does. It has 3 of them. I don't know what this character is, but
I don't either.
People are like, this is their first show. Like, I'm so confused.
Well, this week can be consistent. It's their first and last show.
Yeah, they're like, what? That sounds like a good boat.
Screw this show. I'm going fishing.
No, this is the Non-Essential Podcast. Every week we tell each other stories. They could be real. They could not be real. They could be real and we get all the facts wrong, so they're basically fiction.
Which I think kind of happens most of the time.
Well, I mean, history is always, it's a series of people telling the story. So what we think of as history is probably far off from the truth at this point, because people have been telling the story to each other for years and years and, sometimes centuries.
Right. And they used to, they always say history is written by the victor, but we live in an era where history is written by the podcasters.
History is told by the victor, and we are the victors by virtue of the fact that we're still alive to tell the history. So a lot of these people who thought like, oh, I won, is like, well, you're dead now, bitch. 100 years later, and 2 jackoffs with a podcast get to decide what actually happened. So fuck you.
You're gonna love my topic this week. That's like, I don't know how you have this knack for just like segueing into stuff.
For zeroing in on it.
Yeah. So yeah, sometimes, like you said, sometimes real stories, sometimes fake. This is a real story week, and it's kind of a compilation. It's one of those where it's a number of smaller things that I'm looking at, but there's a common theme, and I think you'll all. It sounds like Ben's figured it out already, anyway, but I think that the rest of you will zero in on it fairly quickly. So Frank Hayes was a 22-year-old stable hand and horse trainer. Though he'd never raced a horse before, he would get his first shot as a jockey on June 4th, 1923. At the famed track at Belmont Park, he'd ride a horse by the name of Sweet Kiss. So, he'd worked around horses. They said at 22 years old, he was a long-time stable hand, because back then, like, they kicked you out of your ass out of the house, and, like, you had to get a job at about 8 or 9. Mm-hmm. And so he'd been around horses a long time, but now he is finally going to get to race one. Despite the mere 20-1 odds of winning, Frank was excited to get his first race in nonetheless. He'd slimmed down from a chunky 142 pounds to a svelte 130 pounds in a relatively short order. Like, I always hate that. They're talking about, like, we all know jockeys tend to be small, but just athletes in general, you see it in boxing, they're like, oh, he's way overweight at 138 pounds. Like, fuck you.
Well, I mean, that's how I feel, is like, I usually hit around 160 pounds, and I'm still like, oh, look at you fucking goddamn bulbous garbage truck ass. Fucking.
Well,
you're never going to be a jockey at this rate.
my thing, I'll be watching like basketball, and they'll be like, "Oh man, this guy, he's a big center. He weighing in at like 220," and it's like, that's what I weigh in at, and I'm 5'6". So anyway, he had to cut down from 142 to 130, but he did it in relatively short order. When the race started, it seemed like his hard work had been worth it. Sweet Kiss jumped out to an early lead, and it was a lead that the horse would actually hold for the entire race. Frank Hayes would have been very excited to earn his first win had he not died of a massive heart attack halfway around the track. So despite being dead...
And then the horse Unwanted Smooch came around and overtook him.
Despite being dead, though, Frank managed to stay in the saddle. In fact, nobody knew he was dead until the horse's owner, a Miss A.M. Frayling, and race officials went to congratulate him. So,
what if that was the trick? What if he just kept going around the track and the horse got faster and faster, even though he was dead?
I don't think we've talked about it on the show, but you've probably read about this or heard about it, but there's been like these weird scientific studies done that like people lose like 0.001 grams or ounces or something. There's like a measurable amount of weight, very, very small, but measurable, that you lose when you die. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, all the like spiritual people are like, oh, that's your soul leaving your body. It's like, why does your soul weigh anything?
Because it eats a lot.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Because when you have a bad day, first thing you do is go to Oreos, and that's to nurture your soul.
Yeah, I didn't think of that, but I think maybe you're right. Like, he was halfway around the track and his horse was slowing down. He's like, no, you fucking don't. If I have to die to loosen, to lighten this load, I will.
We gotta lose weight. He's taking off all his gears, folks. This is very strange. He's losing the helmet, and now the spirit is leaving the body.
But he stayed on the horse, and the horse finished first, so he technically did win the race, and they did reward him the win. In fact, he's the only jockey to ever win while dead.
Imagine losing a race to a dead guy.
I know.
Like every other jockey there should
imagine
retire.
Being that, like, they say like the horse owner and the officials, but I imagine the second place horse guy. Everybody knew it was the kid's first race. Also, they come up and you pat him on the back. You're like, "Good job, kid," and he just like falls off the horse. It's like, "Fuck you! You're such a sore winner."
Also, horse racing. This only further proves that horse racing is absolute bullshit. Because what the fuck are the jockeys for then? And it's always the horses. You watch like any like gambling movie where they go to like a horse track or something. Like they always are like cheering and blaming the horse. And it's like, it's what about that fucking asshole whipping them, Like,
right. Clearly it's not needed.
Yeah, they could do it themselves.
I say we just put like mannequins on the back of horses so you can, as they race, you get to watch these mannequins flail wildly around on their backs.
You think Sweet Kiss like actually gives a fuck if you cover?
Well, it was a hell of a win at 20-1 odds, so the horse made some people a lot of money, but the horse was retired. Yeah, well, they retired it and never raced again. And I don't think that necessarily had anything to do with the jockey dying, but it sure sounds like it. It's like, well, that didn't work.
To be fair, if I was a jockey and you told me the last guy died on it, I would ride it, but I'm insane. So, but normal people would probably be like, sports fans and athletes are especially superstitious, so I have to imagine that translates.
But I would insist that my jockey outfit is a Grim Reaper robe.
How great would it be if you had like the fucking Headless Horseman, like a pumpkin on your head?
Yeah,
that would fucking rule.
Frank kept racing. They used his corpse, and eventually his head popped off because of all the bouncing. So they put a pumpkin up there. That's exactly how this story ends. But the horse was retired and never raced again. Frank never raced again either, if you can believe it.
Oh, that's a shame. You started so strong.
What a pussy. He like races and wins one race. He's like, that's it. I'm done. I'm undefeated. Like, just because he died. Yeah. I mean, I'm sick of people using excuses to
burning out and then fading away.
So the reason I mentioned the weight loss is they think that had a lot to do with it, like dropping 12 pounds. They didn't say how quickly was a relatively quick time, but you can imagine.
I mean, you see
probably a week or two.
I mean, like that's a big thing in MMA, and it's like something that a lot of people, MMA fans and fighters and stuff, are like. The environment of weight cutting is really dangerous. And
oh yeah, because it's horrible for you, but it's not only that, and that's what I was going to say. It's they think it was a combination of the weight cutting and then like the excitement and trying to like push that like 'cause you're doing, and MMA is even worse because you're doing something that's awful for your body, and then you're going into a competition that's one of the like biggest stresses you could possibly put on your body, and that's just a recipe for like.
Like the thing about MMA is like you're trying to put yourself in like a peak physical condition to hurt somebody, which is actually a very unhealthy place for your body to be in anyway. It's why like you watch fighters who have been training for months and then like after the third round you just watch them physically falling apart. It's because they are at a level that isn't actually healthy or sustainable. And then to add on to the fact that like you have some dick official being like you got to be 170 pounds by this date, it's like and all you can do is just like starve yourself and like dehydrate and shit, and a lot of these guys will have like nutritionists and stuff to try to make it better, but the truth is a lot of these guys, their natural weight is like, and I'm sure it's the same for like jockeys, is like if you were at a normal weight, what would be like a medically okay weight, you're probably like at least 20 or 30 pounds more than what you need to be at for your fucking job, Right. Which is, it's bad news.
Yeah, and that's what it mentioned that they, of course, after he crossed the finish line, and they're like, oh, good job, Wade, he's dead. Like, that had to be a really weird emotional swing there.
I don't know. I don't know how I would feel about that.
It mentioned that they forewent all the like normal ceremony and the post race weigh in. They awarded him the win, but they're like, we're not going to make us like weigh this corpse, right? And my first thought was like, why the fuck like do you have to weigh in under a certain weight? But now I'm thinking about it. I don't know. I don't know much about horse racing. I've seen it before, but maybe they mean you weigh in like you're supposed to weigh more than a certain weight. Like you have to be at least. That would make more sense from a logic standpoint. I mean,
maybe, but it also, there's so much about horse racing that doesn't make sense to me. That it's like,
You would think that, because obviously, clearly, at least the way it's viewed, is the heavier the jockey, the bigger disadvantage, because that's more weight that the horse is carrying, as if 10 pounds really is going to make a difference. I don't see why they would
give a shit if you're like,
if you're more
I'm going to put a
200
pound fucking piece of shit on this like poor pony.
The only thing I could see would be like, cruelty to the animal, but the sport of horse racing clearly does not care about. Right. But
that's the thing. Like, it's hard for me to feel too much like, guy didn't deserve to die, I don't think. But like, horses have died so much in like horse racing, and if they don't like they get injured and then they get put down, or they just get old and then they get put down. So there's so much like animal suffering there that it's like it's just an awful fucking sport. Well, not even a sport to me. It's just a spectacle of kind of cruelty and gambling. It's all about gambling, really.
Oh yeah, that's 100% what drives it. But I didn't think about the like weight cutting in terms of MMA. Now, like I want to come back and do a podcast when we get the first MMA fighter to win a fight while dead. Like,
there's been a lot of ones that I've thought were close.
Yeah, and I could see like winning the fight and then keeling over dead. That's not what I mean. Like, I want you to die in the middle of the first round and win in the third round.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, there have been guys who have like locked in like guillotine chokes, which if you don't watch MMA, it's like if I'm facing you and I like take your head down under my arm and it's like we're body to body, and I lock in a choke from there. There have been guys who have locked in that choke, and then the other dude like picked him up and then slammed him to the ground. But because of where your head's at, where it's like tucked under the armpit, they like knock themselves out.
Yeah.
Like trying to hurt you. And then it's like, well, so both guys will like knock each other out. There was actually a famous double KO from that happening. Because the other dude hit the back of his head and the other dude like drilled his head into the mat.
I need to watch more MMA, except for then I see stuff like this weekend that I'm sure you probably saw. And if you haven't seen it, don't fucking go looking for it. It's awful. But so where the one fighter kicked the other one and the other guy blocked it with his shin, and the guy that doing the kicking his leg just like
that. And that is crazy because that dude beat one of the best fighters in the world, checking a kick like the same way.
Yeah, that's what was funny because my wife, we were sitting on the couch Saturday or Sunday, and she like gets this face and like it's like she's gonna hurl, and she's like, "Why did my fucking sister send me this?" Because her sister's not somebody that would watch MMA either, but her sister randomly sent her.
Hey,
the
you
video.
want to see something like fucking gross?
Yeah, and she showed it to me, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's old. I've seen that before." And then like a little bit later, just as browsing Twitter, I could see everybody talking about it and realize, "Oh, that's not old. That just happened." Yeah. And I'm like, "But I swear I saw that before." And then I heard on the radio, it's like, "Oh yeah, that time that you're thinking of that happened before."
He did
the same
that
guy,
to
just on
guy.
the other side.
Yeah.
Right. So karma, I guess. But
not
like I
even
said,
that.
unless,
like that's just. That is one of the freakiest. I
was gonna say
things.
karma makes it sound wrong. It's like, oh, that dick, neither of them did anything wrong. It's just hitting your leg just right where the force turns your shin bone into a pivot. And like I said, unless you really like watching that kind of stuff, it's gross. Like I've seen plenty of it as a football fan, and I've seen stuff before, but I never like seeing it.
Well, people got really good at like checking leg kicks, and how you do that is what guys are doing. It's what happened here.
Yeah.
Because the alternative is somebody just like chops at your fucking knee until you buckle.
Well, yeah. I mean,
so you have to defend it. But
sure, and
it
because
also
it could very
means if
easily
that guy
go the other
gives
way.
it everything he has, he's going to shatter his leg over yours. And that makes this is one of those things where it's like maybe MMA is morally wrong. I don't know.
Although they were like, what? I think they said they were like 8 seconds into the fight or something. Like it was at it was like one of the first parts. Like
it's leg kicks is like how a lot of guys establish range.
Open. Well, plus you tend to, by like round 3 or 4, if you make it that far, you tend to not have as much juice in the tank to snap your leg like that on a kick.
Right.
At that point, you're just trying to kind of bruise them and pummel them down. But now I'm hoping, as gross as it was, that as soon as his leg snapped, one of the announcers yelled, "Flawless victory," for the other guy, because he blocked it and never got hit. Like, I think you win double the purse money that way. You should.
Now you make me just want an MMA fighter to come out like Goro. Just like 2 fake paper mache arms that he can't actually do anything with.
He's just like answering which ones are the real ones, which one you're trying to like act like you can't tell, but it's clearly obvious that they're
maybe the ones that are like kind of symmetrical, you fucking dummy.
So anyway, that was Frank Hayes.
Frankie Hayes.
Next we got Adolf Frederick, who eventually became the King of Sweden. There's a whole line of like complicated succession that led to him being given the title king, but it's not really important here, and I honestly could not fucking follow it. It's like he started as an earl, then such and such passed, so he became chancellor, and this and that, and whatever. Important thing is, eventually he became king.
Yeah,
and the other important thing
I
is
feel
that
like that's the royalty thing, is like is a duke bigger than an earl? Is a chancellor bigger than a duke? Like, who the fuck knows? King runs it all, you know?
And from the little bit that I've seen, none of it's consistent anyway. It's basically whoever they want to become king, or whoever's bloodthirsty enough to become king becomes king. He was not a bloodthirsty king. He was appointed by Sweden's Hat Party, which is short for something, but I like Hat Party, so I just wrote that down. And I hope that, like England, there's also a Whig party, so that their politics are the hats versus the wigs, like
the shirts versus the skins.
Yeah. So anyway, he was appointed more based on like who he had ties to than what it would mean, and what that would mean for like diplomatic relations than any like real leadership that he had.
Wouldn't know anything about that. We certainly don't live in societies where it's about who you know rather than what you can actually do.
Yeah, those dicks, he says, as he's worked for 20 years at a job he got because his dad owns the business.
Yeah.
Ben. Oh, wait. That might be.
Yeah, we're talking. Yeah, the big leadership position of insurance. And
yeah, well, yeah. out of the 4-person office where I basically share the same level of anything as the other 3 people who aren't the owner. But
I was talking more of a political scale, but I know. Steve. It's you're on your way to dukedom.
For 20 years, he'd serve as little more than a figurehead. Twice he'd try to gain more power, to actually rule for himself, but he never succeeded.
That's really sad.
That's what he was described as, just kind of like weak, but like people liked him, but he wasn't a strong leader, and he just.
So you would be like, I decree it, and everybody would be like, nah.
And then he apparently both times was like, fine.
It's like, I guess no one's gonna listen.
So despite those setbacks, on February 12th, 1777, King Frederick decided to throw a little shindig. The menu that night consisted of caviar, lobster, sauerkraut, kippers, and lots of champagne.
Poison.
Mm-hmm. King Frederick ate his fill of each, except the poison. He was not poisoned. That's better where I'm going with this. After the giant meal of all that stuff, and I imagine much more than that, because they made it sound like he had this huge banquet, and then they list like 4 things. I'm like, pfft. I eat more than that at
fish
Denny's.
And bread.
And carrots. Ooh. When they rolled out Frederick's favorite dessert, a pastry I can't pronounce that's served in a bowl of warm milk, Frederick decided to help himself to 14 of them. He died later that night. So he's perhaps the only king in history that was recorded to have ruled until he died of overeating at his own party, which is awesome, because if I've been serving for king as 20 years and I'm depressed that I'm just like this joke of a person that, I get everything I want because I'm king, but it's not very fulfilling because you don't have any real importance or power. You're like, fuck it, I'm going to eat. And then I imagine this wasn't the first big banquet he had. He was just testing, like each time he had a party. Like, they don't talk about the party prior to this. He ate 11 pastries. He's like, I think I can do 14.
I imagine by, like, pastry 3, he's just, like, sweating and miserable. But he's still, like...
You want us to carry you to bed? No, more pastry. He's
still like, I'll show you. As, like...
No real leadership. Can you, on the council, how many pastries can you eat?
If I eat the most gruel pudding, you'll have to listen.
Hey, I hope they found that note scroll. He's like, after I eat 15 pastries, they'll have to make me. And then he died after 14.
Yeah.
And then turns out he was right. There was some obscure rule that if any person eats 15 of these desserts, they automatically become dictator.
I knew he wasn't fit to be king. 14 pastry eating ass.
So that's good King Adolf.
Well, maybe not call him that. He didn't deserve that. It's just an unfortunate first name, but
it is. And it sucks because you say that and you're like, whoa, don't say that. And it's like, but he came like 300 years, not quite, but 250 years before the other Adolf, and he still loses all rights to his name.
Doesn't matter because it doesn't matter if you're good or bad. Like, fucking truth is, Adolf Hitler went big with that name to make sure that name is fucking ruined.
I know. And I'm not saying, like, if you're out there today and your name's Adolf, it's not like, oh, you fucker, your name's Adolf. But it is unfortunate because you're always going to get that because you cannot have that name. And it's like, but it's a family name, so I don't care.
Good King Pastry from now on.
Pastry. And a bowl of warm milk.
Good King Pastry milk.
In fairness, like I said, I didn't even bother writing it down, so I forget what they're called because it was something that I... And you know me, like, in fact, I'm going there right now. Like, I'll torture myself with all sorts of words, but it was just, I was like, nope, not doing it. Not going
I'll
there.
Do it.
But,
what was his name? Adolf Frederick?
Yeah, if you look up the Wikipedia article on him, there's a link to the dessert in the Wikipedia article.
Okay. Well, you keep going. I'll find this and I will set this right. This thing, I will finish the job.
It looks delightful. Like, I'd probably eat 14 of them, but I am not a noob, and I wouldn't die, probably.
It's on Wikipedia, they just call it semla.
Oh, maybe it was the other.
But there's a few. But there's a few variations that definitely go places.
Yeah, no, and that's similar. It's like a simplified term for. There was a specific term for this exact type of pastry on another article. But
so I'm going to give it a shot. Vasla Kukul. Laskaya Spola.
Yeah.
Or Fast Legs Bull. Or Fast Legs
See,
Bull.
that's what I was running into. I'm like, that first word, you're like, nah, no. But there's an alternative, no. Like, there's a third one, no. And then there's a similar, but at that point, I'm like, fuck it, I'm just saying a pastry.
It looks like a biscuit just with, like, cream in the middle, and it looks delicious.
Yeah, there's, like, powdered sugar on top, and it's kind of like biscuit shaped, but it looks a little fluffier than a biscuit, but not much. Like,
It looks like a flaky biscuit, almost.
Yeah, yeah. And I can picture it in a bowl of warm milk, although it seems like it would be delicious by itself, the milk.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever had, like, shortbread cake and milk. Like, we used to do that sometimes where you'd have strawberries shortcake and you'd put milk in it, but...
yeah, I'm sure it's delicious.
Yeah, it's kind of like a cereal.
I would eat about fucking 15 of those, too.
Right.
I guess.
I feel like I wouldn't die, though. But I don't know how much... The only
It depends
thing
what he ate
is...
before.
Well, that's true. Maybe it was less about how much he ate, but his stomach's like sauerkraut and then sweet desserts. Fuck you, buddy.
Right, well, I mean, like, put an American spin on it. I can eat a lot of, like, Hostess shit. But not if I've had, like, a full dinner before, you know?
Right.
So that's maybe if we found out, like, hey, if you have, like, Carl's Jr., and then, or Hardee's if you're on the East Coast, any fast food joint, say you had that, and then you try to have 10 Twinkies afterwards, and that'll kill you. Like, what if that was just a law of the world?
Yeah. Well, diabetes runs in my family, so there's a very good chance that, like, unbeknownst to me, I have it and my blood sugar spikes and kill me. So it probably would kill me. But
yeah.
The only thing that just to drag this out longer than it needs to, I know that at least I'm relatively comfortable saying this king died of overeating, because there was enough stuff all over the place, like in history, and of course Wikipedia is never wrong also. But like, these places were listing these foods, and it's like caviar, they didn't list lobster, and I'm like, well, my understanding is back in that time, lobster was not a fancy king food. It was like this kind of gross, like easily, it was really a peasant food because it was something that was readily available for cheap. But I don't know about the different areas of the world. I know for a fact that that's true in the United States. Like, early in our country's founding, lobster was not the high class meal that it is today. It was considered like this kind of garbage food.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's not the point. He ate a bunch and then died. But I do commend his commitment. Next, we move on to Sigurd Einsteinsen, which I love that because it's like he must have been an extremely smart Viking. Like, oh, that's Einsteinsen.
It's Albert Einstein's great Viking.
That's actually the son. That's what the son stands for. Albert discovered time travel, but unfortunately couldn't share it before he passed away. Anyway, Sigurd was a Viking earl who ruled during the Scottish conquests, which I'm sure you're all aware of.
Yeah, intimately.
Basically, the Vikings' conquest. If you pick a country or principality or kingdom on the coast of Europe, at some point it was under siege by the Vikings. This was during the siege of Scotland. His many accomplishments in battle earned him the very Viking nickname of Sigurd the Mighty. Sigurd's most famous enemy had a much worse nickname, Mal. It's probably Mal or Mal. It's Mael with the little accent like thing over the A. Bright, I think. It's Scottish, so I'm not saying it right at all. But Mal Bright seems like a pretty cool name. Until you get to his full name that he was given, which is, well, like his nickname was Mal Bright the Bucktoothed.
That's pretty scary. Beavers are dangerous. So.
He was a local ruler and a thorn in Sigurd's side. So Sigurd decided to challenge old Bucky to a 40-on-40 battle. And I must say, I was aware that was a thing. Like, instead of just sieging, you're like, you know what? Let's make this sporting. Yeah. Yeah.
2 teams, and instead of fighting, we play over this pigskin.
No, I like the idea that it's to the death, but it's like
Oh, it's to the death, but it's football. It's American football. Which is also to the death.
Bucky agreed to Sigurd's challenge, but Sigurd, being the cunning Viking warlord that he was, devised a strategy to defeat his wonky-toothed enemy, and it's a plan that I like to think he spent many long evenings devising. On the day of the 40-on-40 battle...
He initiated a no-biting rule.
Yeah. No, my teeth!
Each team's allowed a veto, and I veto your teeth.
Your teeth.
It's like, fuck.
It's like, damn it.
I got burned so hard.
So on the day of the 40-on-40 battle, Sigurd showed up with 80 soldiers and beat the shit out of Mal and his army. Then Sigurd took his reward, cutting Mal's head off and tying it to his belt. So yeah, a couple things that I read was that he devised a cunning plan to trick his enemy. It's like, that's not a fucking trick. Yeah. That's flat out, that's just cheating. Although it's on Bucky why would you assume that the other side would be...
Why the fuck would an invading force be like, but let's do this the right way? It's like if fairness was at all in their equation, they wouldn't be trying to take your shit.
Yeah, I mean, if they really cared about being fair, they'd say, let's have this challenge where we're not killing each other.
Yeah, let's barter.
And whoever wins,
trade
that'd be...
and commerce.
Right.
It's like, no, dude.
So yeah, it's on Bucky for being like, he's only bringing 40 dudes. I'm bringing 40 dudes. I'm sure he'll be good to his word.
The non-essential podcast. Conqueror apologists.
Just... So, like I said, Sigurd won and he killed Bucky, and then he cut off his head and tied it to his belt like Vikings do. But as he rode off, one of Mal Bright's bucked-toothed teeth scratched Sigurd's leg.
Oh, great.
The scratch became infected, and that killed Sigurd.
Dude, that's what beavers do. That's why...
I know.
That's awesome.
So Bucky's like, Ghost is up there like, you think you won, fucker. Just wait.
Yeah. Get some fucking gingivitis in your leg, bitch.
I guess the moral is that the devilish plan to bring twice as many guys as you promised to bring would have been better if he had also included wearing pants. Like, maybe that was Mal Bright's terms. Like you said, Sigurd was like, no teeth, and he's like, damn, I knew I shouldn't have picked no pants. Huh. But in the end, it worked.
So, if we're Vikings, we're always choosing no pants.
And how fucking bucked were his teeth to like...
to get that name.
Right. I think that was one of my favorite ones out of the ones I was reading, because it's just like, yeah, I'm the master tactician here. And then you die because the tooth on the head you cut off scratches you.
Yeah, I like shit to come back on people, so...
Sherwood Anderson became a successful businessman, running companies in both Cleveland and Elyria, Ohio. I should know how to pronounce that because I know where it's at, but I don't. Then he had a nervous breakdown and became a writer, which is, of course, like the only way that anybody becomes a writer. You don't do it when you're of sound mind because,
nope.
Come on. I mean, you either have a nervous breakdown or you never had it in the first place. Like, yeah. But he was a successful novelist, essayist, and short story writer. He was less successful at being married, having tried it 4 different times with 7 different women. That part's not true. I added the 7 different women part, but he was married and divorced 4 times. But again, as a writer, he was celebrated, and he was known to spend time with other successful writers. There's a couple names listed, but the only one that I recognize, because I'm a unintelligent plebe, was William Faulkner. Apparently, him and Faulkner were pretty... I don't want to say like best friends or anything, but they hung out, they were known to be seen together, so they were definitely peers. So during a cruise in March of 1921, Sherwood fell ill, complaining of, among other symptoms, abdominal pain. Then on March 8, he died. His death was determined to be a result of periodontitis, or inflammation of the pancreas, which was confirmed in a subsequent autopsy, where it was also discovered that the periodontitis was caused by the toothpick which he had accidentally swallowed while drinking martinis on the cruise. I don't know how you do that. Although martinis still fucking kick your ass, so I guess
pretty fucking drunk. So
yeah. But I like to just imagine that that's how he liked his martinis. Like, you know, James Bond's famously shaken, not stirred. And Sherwood was, I want a martini, pointy, not soft.
Could I get a lot of those toothpicks with the olives on?
No, leave the olives off. I don't need the olives, just the toothpick.
Yeah. Dip the toothpicks in the olive juice. And then.
But I like that one because it's crazy, but it's also like... It's probably one of the most writerly ways to die that I've ever heard of in my entire life. A lot of writers die of alcoholism.
Yes.
He's the only one that I've heard of that drank a toothpick because he was drunk and it killed him. Like, kudos, Sherwood. I may have to look up something you wrote and read it because it's probably pretty good. Because like the more like weirdly alcoholic tragic your death is, the better writer you probably were.
Yeah.
I think that's true to a fault.
I always like the stories of like alcoholic writers who just sort of get drunk and wander off.
Yeah,
you know?
Like Poe.
Yeah. Well, they found Poe, wasn't he like raving like a maniac?
Yeah, I think he was basically not lucid though, and then just never came to. And there's a lot of, in fact, on these kind of lists that. By now, you've probably figured out my theme is people that died in weird ways. And Poe was on a lot of those lists. I left him off of this because everybody's, you know, that's a pretty relatively well-known story. I'm not saying we can't talk about that kind of stuff, but I found the other stuff more interesting. But I want to say, like, well, I know one of the theories is that Poe had rabies, or there's a couple other diseases that they thought it may. So it wasn't like the alcohol that they think killed Poe, but I think he was supposedly, like, drunk when he kind of wandered off into the streets. Like, I think it was a mixture.
He had a million things wrong with him. That was a dude who was like really not cut for the pressure of like being a public figure.
I wonder how,
because he feuded with like fucking everyone.
That's really interesting because it brings up something that I've kind of talked about on Twitter before. And I think a lot of us, anybody that does a podcast or writes a blog like we've done or does art or whatever, there's like a part of you, at least for me, it's like I always like we record an episode and there's always part of you like, man, that would be awesome if like 1 million people listen to this show. But then, if 1 million people listen to this show, I'd probably never leave my house ever again because I'd be mortified.
Yeah.
Like, so there's a part to any creative where you kind of want to be famous, and it's not necessarily about the fame. A lot of people that create
don't necessarily want to be about the money for me. Just rest assured, it's not because I want to make a connection with 1 million people. It's because I want to sell you T-shirts with my big face on them.
Coming next week, we announce the non-essential store, which we really should have, except for not a soul would buy anything from it. But we've had so many good, like...
Bullshit. If I made a Bass Blaster fishing boat T-shirt and other apparel line, you're telling me that wouldn't fly off the shelf? Fuck you.
That's what I mean. We've had so many things that would be perfect for an online merchandise store.
It would be a boat that, like, the engine part... Like, there's, like, 2 butt cheek parts to the end of the boat. So when it's like, blasting through the water, it looks like it's farting. Well,
yeah, that's
and kids would howl, and everyone would have a good time.
I don't know how familiar you are with boats. I grew up around them, so I'm relatively familiar. I'm far from an expert. But jet boat, that would be perfect for a jet boat. It uses, like, the jet ski type impeller engine where it... propels itself by like sucking in water and blasting it out like a jet. That's why it's called a jet ski or a jet boat. So that would be perfect for 2 butt cheeks and then the jet just right between them.
Yeah,
like
it could be any boat, really.
Yeah.
Even if the engine's not running, the effect would remain the same.
Yeah, I'm sorry, everybody. This is the last episode of this podcast because my new life goal that I have to devote every waking moment of my life to is building an ass boat, an ass blaster, ass boat.
Bass blaster.
Bass blaster.
We got to be able to sell this.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to invent that boat, but I also need to become a good enough professional fisherman to get on, like, Bassmaster or TV show or whatever. I don't know what they are. I know there's fishing on TV. Well, I love fishing. I don't watch it, but...
With these sound-absorbing cheeks... behind the boat, you can actually get around the lake and not disturb any of the fish.
I just want to have a moment where it's on TV. Nobody sees it because, like I said, I think about 27 people in the country watch fishing shows.
But that percentage buys a lot of dumb shit.
Well, but I want them to be watching one of those fishing shows and having the like golf-like announcer that's, they talk real quiet and they're like, oh, Billy Johnson, he's casting into the weeds with his dipping stick, and then all of a sudden there goes Steve Gibson and his bass blaster, and you just see this ass boat go ripping right by. Billy Johnson goes tumbling. He's like, "God damn,
that,
Steve
like,
Gibson!"
Tilt thing where the engines go inside, like half the boat's in the air.
Yeah, right.
And you got like three American flags.
You about knock him out of his boat, and he's sitting there. God damn it, Steve Gibson and your bass blaster ass boat!
But you can't deny things quiet.
Silent but deadly. That's one of the lines. I mean, there's the ripping. I don't know. Yeah. We'll hash all this out off air. Yeah. But
no one take this fucking idea, okay?
But we've got like 4 days between recording and when this goes live.
I would love if I had to like bleep out Bass Blaster in every fucking line in this episode, just because we actually are like, we got to make it.
So I got one more person here, and she's the only female to make this list.
Women not dying stupid. Good on you, ladies.
Yeah, most of them not, yeah. Isadora Duncan was born in San Francisco on either May 26, 1877, or May 27, 1878, which is a weirdly specific, non-specific time frame. Yeah. It's like, it was either on this day of this year or this other day on this other year. We're not sure which, but one of those 2 days precisely. Isadora would become an extremely successful and famous dancer who would later open up a number of dancing schools while developing her own style and technique. Unfortunately, the world of dance tends to be not very kind to women as they age, which is true of a whole lot of jobs and just things in general. But dance, both like physically and societally, like people are like, we don't want to go see this old hag that's 40 years old dance. Yeah. Plus your body just falls apart because it's horrible on it. So eventually her career as a dancer faded, and she became more known for her constant financial troubles, countless sexual scandals and escapades, and many, many incidents of public drunkenness. Which to me really just sounds like she got really fucking cool. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's the fucking career arc, of everyone.
Yeah, like good for her. Like, a lot of them become these like
crime, and then you reap the benefits of that by being irresponsible with money and
if you do it right,
depraved sex and substance abuse, and that's what the fuck did you come to this planet for?
What I love about it is it's another great example of they're like sexual scandals. It's like she had boyfriends, but when a woman does it and they're famous, right? Like you look at, I can't think of any because I'm bad at the eras, but like male movie stars from the time, and like, oh, that Playboy such and such, he's such a cool, suave guy. Oh, this dancer's had 3 boyfriends, fucking slut. Like that's what I imagine when you read sexual scandals. What they mean. Yeah. But whatever, you be the judge. On the evening of September 14th, 1927, Isadora got into a vehicle with a French-Italian mechanic. As they prepared to leave for the night, Isadora's friend begged her to wear a cape, which might just have been like a funny dare, like, I bet you won't wear this cape through town. But the friend claims it was because she was worried for Isadora's health, due to the cool night air and the fact that the vehicle was an open-air car, which is basically like, before they figured out you could invent a convertible that like opens and closes, they're like, this is just a car without a top. Yeah. Like it's, yeah. Isadora rightfully refused to wear a cape because it's like, fuck that, I'm not wearing a stupid cape.
But instead, I thought we were going to play Batman, but...
That's the thing. Like her friend was dressed like Robin, and she's like,
scandalous ass.
Yes, ass. Yeah. But she wouldn't wear the cape, but she agreed to put on a scarf, which was a long, flowing, brightly painted silk scarf that she had received as a gift. As the two departed, Isadora's friend reportedly immediately saw the problem, but it was too late to say anything about it. As the vehicle sped down the cobblestone road, the dancer's long scarf became tangled in the open spokes of the open-air vehicle's rear wheel. And she was suddenly and violently yanked from the vehicle. I guess the good thing is at the time they didn't have seatbelts, so it wasn't like you were being torn between two different things. Didn't fucking matter. She was just whipped out of that vehicle, and like, I can just picture the arc. You know, it looked like something out of a movie that you wouldn't believe, where your body's like a rag doll, gets thrown back and just slammed into the ground, killing her instantly. Although some reports said that she was also nearly decapitated, which you could imagine.
You know what's amazing is about midway through this episode, you didn't want to talk about an MMA fighter breaking his leg on another man's leg.
No.
You were like, I don't want to bring that up, but if you've seen it, you know what we're talking about. But this, you're okay with a woman getting her fucking ripped out by her neck.
I was 1,000% okay talking about the fighter's leg. Wasn't okay watching it. Same deal here. Like, I can talk about this. If you're like, oh, Steve, here's a video on YouTube of it, I'd be like, fuck that. I'm not. Although I did look up that video of that parachutist guy that you did a while ago. So I don't know. I'd probably fucking watch it out of morbid curiosity. It's the kind of thing that most of us are like, I don't want to see that, but it's there. I have to watch it. And then you watch it and you're like, my soul is crushed for the rest of my life. Like, I am permanently damaged by that visual. I wish I hadn't seen it, but I know I'd probably fucking click it if it was there.
I mean, we've talked about it before, but it's like that Bud Dwyer suicide tape that is on the internet. Like, he was this, I forget what government position.
Politician.
Yeah. But that, like, I saw that video, and that was, that's very weird. It's very
I've seen it a couple times, not more than 3 probably, or 2, because once I didn't. It's the kind of thing you're like, I don't want to see this, but people are always like, oh, have you seen this video? And you're like, oh, well, okay, he shoots himself. And if you haven't seen it, again, I don't recommend watching it, but it's a guy that shoots himself in the head on TV, because it was during like a debate or some kind of press conference or something.
He was like. He was in some scandal or some shit.
Yeah, he was being investigated for stuff, which, and the kind of tragic part of it, I don't remember what he did, so it was probably not good stuff. But it's kind of the kind of stuff that basically every fucking politician does. And that shows you that this guy at least kind of I was going to say had some kind of maybe not. He just maybe couldn't.
He just didn't want to go to jail. I don't know the context either, but most of these fuckers don't have like there's no like actual regret there. The only thing there is like, we got caught. And rather than I can't live as one of these people that doesn't get it, everything on a pie. So it might have been that, but whatever. He shoots himself, and it's not fun to watch. I mean, it's not as gory as like Hollywood's desensitized us to stuff, but it's worse because it's real. Yeah. I think that's what's scary about like real videos of like real, violence and tragedy, and like the guy jumping out with his parachute thing, is how no matter what happens in it, like the guy jumping off that tower, and I don't remember the episode number. This was one we talked about a while ago. Guy basically tried to make a parachute suit, and rather than do proper testing on it, he decided he was going to just jump the fuck out of off the Eiffel Tower.
Off the Eiffel Tower, yeah. And demonstrate it in front of a live crowd, like it was.
Yeah, and it was filmed. Thing. And it almost. What's scary about it is, it almost looks like a fucking old movie bit. Yeah. And then like, but then like everything about it, is real. And
right.
So some of these things you could say things like oh, Hollywood. Makes things gorier than it is, but sometimes like the Hollywood's actually like eerily close to how non-dramatic things are. Like,
those are the ones that get me more when you watch this. And I'm not a big fan of like shock out, gross out horror, like Saw and that kind of stuff. But the ones that are the worst to me aren't the ones that's like, oh, they cut them in half and you can see their guts and their skull and it's like they got bisected. You're like, that's gross, but it's Hollywood. Not that people have never been bisected before, but it's whatever. But it's when it's just that real final, like, somebody accidentally steps backward in front of the semi-truck and there's just like a mist of blood and the person's gone in an instant. Because that's what it would be in real life. It's just one instant somebody's alive, the next they're dead, and it's final but instantaneous. That's the part that's really, like, kind of sickening. But yeah, this one, the Isadora's was kind of a shorter thing, but it was one of those that was so like horrible, but also kind of like, how the fuck would that like?
I mean, it's a very Final Destination type of death.
Can you imagine being? And it would. You can imagine it would happen so quick. Like there's probably not a moment that she realized it was happening until she got violently ripped out of her seat. And I guarantee the driver of the automobile didn't know what happened until she got violently ripped out of her seat.
Should have wore the cape. I mean,
yeah,
because not only would that not have gotten caught in the tires, but you could probably fly. That's what capes are for.
Right. Right. I can't imagine wearing a scarf long enough to go out of a car like and down to the wheels. Like that's a very gaudy fucking scarf.
You should. Yeah, you would have been tripping on that shit on the way to the car. So, like, you should have. In some ways, like that scarf should not have been involved in this situation. But it's also like viscerally making me not want anything around my neck.
Which is the correct way to feel about anything around your neck. Like,
yeah,
I wear ties from time to time. It's been a while because I go through phases where I'm like, oh, I'll dress like a business person. I do business, and then I'm like, fuck it, I don't like. It's not comfortable and it's too much work. I'm not doing that.
I refuse to wear ties. That way, any company meeting, people know I'm a real young hotshot go-getter. I put my feet. Security. I put my muddy, shit-covered feet on their desk as I kick back, and I say, "I got a plan to save this company millions."
Have you ever heard of?
Have you heard of Bass Blasters?
Bass Blasters, yes. You have. Fuck! Don't tell me it already.
You understand the water levels are rising, and everybody's going to need a fishing boat by the year 2025. Take this journey with me, sir. And I could be on Shark Tank.
Okay, that's not a boat. I had to look it up. There is a Bass Blaster.
Is it butt cheeks that go around the fishing boat engine?
No, it's the name of like a podcast maybe or something.
I don't.
So don't look it up. Don't Google it. I'm not giving any traffic to somebody else's podcast. Fuck that.
I'm going to get the patent and I'm going to shut them down with a big cease and desist.
Yeah, it's not a boat, so we're safe.
I don't think it needs to be a boat. I think I could just make the butt cheeks, and you could put it on your own boat. That'll sell.
Yeah. Well,
it's just noise muffling cheeks, clapping, booty clapping.
Here's a funny story for people that I'm sure you'll get a kick out of. So we've had boats. We don't anymore, but growing up, we had boats, and there was like another family that we never just owned it outright because we're not, la-ti-da, Mr. Rich family over here.
Which is funny, you say that, because my dad's side of the family is incredibly poor, and the one thing they splurge on and they have 3 fishing boats.
Yeah.
But they can't keep a fucking roof over their head.
Why do you don't need a roof if you got a boat?
That's true.
But anyway, so we used to spend a lot of time on boats. And one of the things you need when you have a boat that you don't want to get ruined are these little like bumpers that when you're docked at a dock or pier or whatever, you kind of hang over the side to keep the boat like as it gets pushed into the dock, so you're not like constantly scraping the side of your boat. But long story short, those kind of ones, the typical ones you see tend to roll out of the way because they're round, and so like. My dad and the other guy had kind of a manufacturing company, and they made these pads that actually like snap to the dock itself instead, so they don't move. And they made some money off of it. Not a lot, obviously, because I'm not a rich what's it called? I didn't inherit a bunch of boat money, boat pad money. But anyway, to bring this around to our show, that's what Bass Blaster is. They're asses that you put on your boat to keep them from getting like their bumpers, like, and then you have like the different
they can be bumpers, but it's about making the fart thing.
The fart thing, okay.
It's silencing your boat engine.
Those products always do sell better. The ones that don't actually do anything, they're just like cosmetic.
That's what I'm talking about. It's really like 2 foam butt cheeks, which like we can make so easily. And just like, and then it's underwater, so you'll have to take our word for it that it's actually silencing anything and not just getting shredded by the engine.
But now I'm picturing like backing that boat into the water. You just see 2 giant ass cheeks with a propeller in the middle.
And that would be great. Mm-hmm. And it's got a little Bass Blaster tramp stamp.
Yes. Yeah, and like I said, my dream is to have one and then wait till somebody's actually doing serious tournament fishing and just blast by them with it, like full tilt.
Yep.
So, though, now we got to get more into this. If the back end is the ass, do you put like a dick on the front so that, like you said, the faster you go, the front of the boat lifts? Too far?
This isn't a sex toy thing. This is professional fishermen. Gear and tackle.
Yeah, didn't mean to make it tacky.
You can't put a big floppy cock on the front of your boat until Bass Pro Shop says we can sell that.
It's like the.
Until then, that's gross.
Spinnaker, is that the thing on a sailing ship that sticks out the front of the boat? I don't know. Probably not.
Because guys always name their boats after women, so boats are always female. So you would put like underneath the boat, you would put like, just big hooters.
Big hooters.
Hooters. And
it's a nightmare for like water. I don't know what it is, hydrodynamicy or whatever the fucking word would be.
But
like you'll burn like 8 times as much gas, but it's worth it.
But no, it's I got it. I'm forming the thing. So they're tits that go on the bottom of your boat, kind of like the midsection of the boat, and we got camera lenses in there, so you can look down, and it's thermal, so you can see the activity of the water underneath you to know if like you're in the range of the fish and shit.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Although we just said that the best inventions are the ones that serve no purpose, they're just strictly cosmetic. What if there's pontoon boats? Couldn't you make the pontoons, like, wouldn't that be a natural fit?
I don't care. Just buy my ship boobs.
Buy your stuff.
Just purchase these ship boobs because I made 20 of them, and they're clogging up my backyard, and neighbors are complaining, and I need to sell these. I don't care what you put them on. Put them on your house. And I got these fucking ship butt cheeks that nobody wants. I thought they would want them. So buy this stuff, please.
They come with a free t-shirt.
I fucking take the t-shirts. I shouldn't have ordered all this shit. Because I'm fucked now.
If you're interested...
So thanks, guys. At the beginning of the show, when you could have been like, that's a bad idea, Ben, nobody DM'd me. You let me order all this crap, and now I'm fucked.
Yeah, what are you going to do with 37 tons of foam butt cheeks?
I mean, I'm going to do debauchery.
What any guy would do.
Yeah, I'm going to commit horrible fucking sin against these foam.
I love how quickly you came to that conclusion, too. You're like, I'll find a use for them, but I'm just saying.
What do you think I'm going to do? I'm broke now. No woman will come over here. All right. Well, good fucking product. Good episode. Fuck. We'll be back next week.
If you've got any ideas for ways to like for topics of the show, or if you've died in a really weird and humiliating manner, please write to us. And otherwise,
give me my money back.
I try to make it a point, like you said at the very beginning. That's why I was kind of laughing when you were talking about it, to not make fun of a death that's happened within the last about 100 years. That's about the where it's
That's the sweet spot.
But I say that, but it's not true at all, because I know we've talked about people that have died much more recently than that. But I'll pretend to have some kind of ethics or moral or some kind of like guiding principle. Yeah. I don't.
That's what they say about us. We have a great moral compass on this show.
That's what we're known for. Yes.
Anyway, yeah. See you next week.
Yeah, sorry about all that. We'll try to be better next week. And by that I mean worse.
Whoops.